Well, as leaders, it's tempting to fall into this temptation of, I'm leading the ministry. I don't need that anymore. I don't need to be doing what I'm actually guiding and shepherding others to be a part of. Why is it important to be active and wise participant in Celebrate Recovery, specifically open share small groups? Why is it important for us to do that? Today we're going to talk about the importance of setting an example and making sure that we stay in the recovery process regardless of where we are in leadership.
Recovery can be hard, but it's worth it. There is hope knowing we can find healing one step at a time with Jesus and healthy community. Whether you're struggling with a hurt or a hang-up or a habit, you're not alone. During this podcast, we share real stories, practical tools, and powerful truths that inspire you to keep moving forward. No matter where you are on your journey, there's hope ahead. So stick with us as we walk this path together through Celebrate Recovery.
Welcome, everybody. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. My name is Rodney. I am the pastor and one of the leaders here at Celebrate Recovery, and so good to be back with you guys. Thanks so much for all you do to help get the word out about Celebrate Recovery. You're making a difference in helping us in this space, so it helps us to reach more people. Thanks for giving us a review wherever you listen, and even a rating to help us get more exposure. I wish it wasn't that way, but it helps with the algorithms and getting more exposure. So thanks for helping us with that. But this topic came in from one of you guys and asking, could you talk on that topic? And there's always a story behind that. I'm sure there's probably some leaders out there that you've seen that have lost the value of the importance of staying active, being an active and wise participant in Celebrate Recovery. So I wanted to lean into that as one of our listeners requested that, and as always, we'd love to hear from you if you've got some topics. But why is that important? Well, I think right out of the gate, I'd say it really as a leadership, as leaders in the ministry, being an active and a wise participant in open share small group specifically. It's really the ministry as a whole, but specifically open share is one that we tend to kind of push to the edges, and I don't need that. I've arrived. As leaders, it sets a spiritual tone. What we do matters more than what we say, and oftentimes we get hung up in this mindset of, I know all the things to tell you. I know the things to say. I'll just teach you what to do. And a lot of times we forget, we undervalue that we're setting a tone for how people will live out their lives and their practices by watching us. They're watching us. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. People will follow us based on how we're living our lives. What's the tone that we're setting in this setting? So are we setting an example to the folks that we're trying to shepherd? It doesn't work to say, do as I say, not as I do. That might work for a while, and you might be able to get by with that. It's like, okay, well, maybe they're just kind of shepherding, but at some point they're going to start saying, well, maybe when I arrive, I won't have to do those basics. And so we're trying to understand that, and I've said this before, I've heard other people on the global team say this, some other ministry leaders here locally. I'm one choice away from being back in that pit. And I know that sounds scary to say that. It's like, man, what kind of stability have you created in your life? The reality is there's an enemy still seeking to kill, steal, and destroy. I want to stay in it for me first and foremost, but those that I'm shepherding as a leader need to see that we never arrive. We never arrive. So I'm setting a spiritual tone. I think the second thing for me is, it's cool to think about. Jesus modeled this for us. He modeled it first, and then he taught it. Jesus didn't just instruct, he showed us how to live, turning the other cheek, living out, not letting our anger get the best of us, living is being attacked, and his enemies were on him like bees on honey, right? He modeled humility. He modeled service better than anyone. He modeled sacrifice. And I've talked about this before, but there's plenty of commitment statements that Jesus said. I will be with you to the ends of the earth. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Those are pretty cool commitment statements. And as we think about leaders, we are committed, and we're saying, I'm going to shepherd you. I'm going to help you deal with your hurts, hangups, and habits. I'm going to help you as far as it depends on me, knowing that Jesus is the source, lead you toward life and freedom. So those are cool statements of commitment. Now, how does that commitment get solidified? Through sacrifice. Jesus didn't just say, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. He showed us through his sacrifice on the cross. So Jesus modeled this with humility, service, and sacrifice. John 13:15 says it well. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Jesus is saying that for us. Model, he did it for us through humility, service, and sacrifice. Jesus is instructing us as called leaders to model that. So that's why that idea of being an active and wise participant in Open Share Group is so critical. Am I modeling service? Am I modeling humility? Am I modeling sacrifice? It's a sacrifice to go and be a part of that. Sharing my story, sharing my struggles, my victories with someone else in those groups. So important to be mindful that Jesus modeled it for me first, and then he taught it. And so that's what he wants us to do. Make sure we don't get those backwards. I think a big one for me is authenticity builds trust. When I'm authentic and I walk the walk, it builds this trust. And let me just be honest, even here on a local level, I've dealt with some leaders even recently. They've gotten stuck in this lie that they're a leader and they can't show their weaknesses in front of those that they're shepherding. I think it's actually more damaging not to show those flaws. Now, we gotta be steady. We gotta be secure in our leadership, and we gotta keep moving the team even in the midst of turmoil. They need a steady voice and a steady presence in that. But I want to be able to be authentic with you and say, man, today was a hard week. So when I go to those open share groups and I share, it builds authenticity. And guess what it does? It builds trust in those that I'm shepherding. It's like, oh, you're not just saying this stuff. I was talking with a guy that goes inside prisons, and he was talking about how when he first started going into prisons, he brought in all this wisdom, and I'm going to tell you how to do life, and I'm going to share this with you. And it just felt like it was falling flat on the guys. And then he had an argument with his wife on his way to do prison the next week. And that argument, it was unresolved. He was still kind of carrying it, and he was kind of feeling down. And he got into the prison, and he just talked about his current struggle. He had more impact from those guys. They came up and said, thank you for sharing that. We thought you were perfect. And it just really kind of opened his eyes to, oh my gosh. Guess what it did? It built trust. And then he was able to share his wisdom. Of course, there's a time and a place to share that truth, but we want to connect with people before we correct them in their thinking. And if I'm not being authentic, I'm not going to have the opportunity to share with you. So people are drawn to leaders who live out what they say. So if you're not living out what you're preaching, what you're speaking, what you're teaching, what you're imploring people to do in their recovery, why would they ever want to follow you in that space? They want you to live out what you're saying. So integrity deepens It deepens our influence, and it really builds it. It fosters this culture of trust. So are you being an active, wise participant in Open Share? And if you're not, you're probably experiencing some trust issues. Hebrews 13:7, remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcomes of their way of life and imitate their faith. We all are imitating somebody's faith. Just even recently talking to a local guy who's retiring and talking to just about the impact in imitating his faith through the last 15 years. Someone is always watching us. And if you're in a leadership position, know they're especially watching you and they want to imitate. So the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you deal with conflict, the way you deal with distress, the way you deal when things are stressful, all these things, the way you deal with things when things are going good, the way you deal with your daily practices, your habits, we call those disciplines. Somebody is wanting to imitate that. What will they imitate? Will they imitate your unwillingness to be an active and willing participant in Open Share? Because, I've arrived. It's like, well, I want to be that point where I don't have to do that either. No, we're modeling saying, hey, I'm one step away. In fact, when I'm leading newcomer groups, I'm often saying, hey, it sounds noble that I'm here leading this, but it's actually very selfish because it keeps me on this road. And so I want to keep pouring into you. And if I'm not leading this group, I'm over in the Open Share small group. So I want people, I want to understand and be mindful that people are trying to imitate me and to keep that mindset. They're trying to imitate my faith. So what are they imitating? The other one is modeling the thing that they're imitating. When I model that, it gives permission and courage for other people to do the exact same thing. See, when we walk in humility, when we walk in transparency, there's been times when I've been in a group and no lie, I may cry 90% of the time because I'm thinking of a season during COVID when I lost 3 people in my life back to back to back. My best man in my wedding, one of my spiritual mentors, Pastor John Baker, near and dear friend, and then my music teacher who took me in when I was homeless, Mr. Taylor. I lost them back to back within a 3-month span. I lost them. And so processing that grief, I'm leading the group. And comes to my sharing, I can't even get words to come out. But I can tell you the guys circling back with me said, man, that meant a lot to me, and it actually gave me permission to struggle. It gave me courage to talk about the scary parts of my heart. So when we walk in that humility, when we walk in transparency and even perseverance in the midst of life, it gives others permission and courage to do the same thing. It's okay not to be okay. That was true day 1, and it will be true day 10,001. Until Christ returns, we have not fully recovered. And so what worked for me day 1 will work for me 10,001. Do I believe that? So it's given people permission and courage to do that. 1 Corinthians 11:1, for my example, follow my example. Jesus is reminding this. The scriptures remind us, follow Jesus' example. If Paul is saying this, follow my example that comes from the Lord. We all need a Timothy. We all need a Paul. We all need a Barnabas, right? We need those encouragers. We need someone we're mentoring. We need someone that we're looking up to imitate. Paul's saying, follow my example that comes from the Lord. As I follow the example of Christ, he says. That's in 1 Corinthians 11:1. Modeling it gives permission. It gives courage to do the very same thing. So when you show up, now you may go to an Open Share group. You don't have a lot of struggles to share today. Share your story, right? Just sharing what has God done for your life. Share the victories. There was a time in my life when I wouldn't be able to share my victories because I had so much shame. I couldn't even recognize the victories. There was a time when I didn't have any victories to share because I was in the muck. And so being able to share those kind of things in an open share group gives life. Can you imagine an open share small group with no one with any fruit? It's just all brand new persons sitting in that circle. Now, could God do something with that? Of course. But when we have people that are in the journey 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it gives them life to go, man, I want what you have. I want to imitate your faith, as the scripture says. I want to model what you're doing in your life. I want to follow your example, Paul. As you follow Christ, I want to do that same thing. If that brought the fruit that you're expressing in those victories in your life, I want that same fruit in my life. And so don't undervalue just the strength and the power of you sharing in those groups. And sometimes you may just listen. Just your presence in those groups can be life-giving for the newcomers. And you're saying, hey, this is what we value here in our ministry. We practice what we value. If I value time with my wife, that means I spend time with my wife. If I value coming to corporate worship together, even though I could be doing something else, that means I do that. I practice it. When I go to Open Share small group or Step Study small group, but specifically Open Share is what we're talking about today, it says, oh, this is important to you. And it tells the newcomer and it tells those that are behind you that you're reaching back for, that this is important. This is a valuable part of your life. It's valuable for me. It will be valuable for you. Going to take a super quick break right there and continue the conversation on just understanding why it's important to be an active and wise participant in Open Share small group, even when we're in leadership. So stick with me and we'll continue the conversation. We'll be right back.
Hey, Forever family. Every Friday night, we have our Celebrate Recovery meetings at Fellowship Fayetteville and Fellowship Rogers. At 6 p.m., we have a great meal for connection with other recovery brothers and sisters. Then we meet for large group at 7 p.m., followed by open share groups at 8 p.m. We have the same schedule at both campuses, where you'll find different teachers and different worship teams, but the same great experience. We'd love for you to join us this Friday night. It's never too late to start or start over again. For more information, visit fellowshipcr.org.
All right, welcome back. Talking about just the importance of being an active, wise, why do I say wise participant? Because people that are wise continue to do the disciplines that got them where they are. And so to be an active and wise participant they run hand in glove there. And so right before the break, talking about just modeling gives permission. It gives us courage. I think the next point for me is leadership is discipline. And that word discipline feeds into is where we get discipleship. Discipleship comes from that word discipline. So leadership is discipleship, which comes from discipline. So don't forget that. If we're trying to disciple someone, it means we're working and living out of disciplines in our life. Modeling Christ-centered, and Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered ministry. Christ-centered life, modeling a Christ-centered life is one of the most powerful forms of discipleship. And let's be honest, there's times we don't feel like it. All right, there's times that I, get to the end of the day on a Friday after lots of stuff and lots of things hitting me. I'm just tired. But I've never gone to a meeting and regretted it. It's like, man, I'm so glad I came here. But sometimes it's the discipline part of discipleship. I don't want to just tell you, hey, this is how you live your life. This is how you stay sober. This is how you walk in freedom. This is how you walk in that hope that I've been telling you about. Discipline is a form of discipleship. So leadership is discipleship. So it's one of the most powerful forms of discipleship, modeling Christ-centered life. So people are watching, pings off of what I was talking about a little bit ago, but they're watching me. And if I'm discipling you as a leader, and if you are a leader, you are making disciples, whether you realize it or not. It's just a question of what kind of disciples are you making. People are watching you even when you don't realize it. Philippians 4:9, Paul says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. I love that. Whatever you've learned, whatever you've received or heard from me or seen in me. And that's the part that if you're not seeing in me discipline to keep practicing these things, why would I want to follow you as a leader? And if you're looking back and there's no one following you, you may not be leading the right way. And so it's not always the case, but sometimes there's special circumstances, like they're not going to follow you because you're trying to push them in a direction to coach them and guide them. That's a whole different conversation. But if in general, nobody's following you, it may be that there's not anything that's inspiring to follow. And it's like, ouch, that hurts. But what are they learning from you? What are they receiving from you? What are they hearing from you? Most importantly, what do they see in you? And what we're telling them, hey, whatever you're seeing in those things, whatever you're seeing in me, put that into practice. And hopefully they're seeing a discipline of living out your recovery. I think a good point for me is people reproduce what they see, not just what they hear. Now, we're big around here in our local ministry about multiplying, reproducing leaders who know and express the authentic Christ to our community and the world. And that can be applied wherever you're listening. Multiplication, reproducing. People reproduce what they see. So if you're not working your recovery, you're not doing Principle 7, you're not going to open share small group, then that's probably creating some issues. There might be an attitude issue. Maybe your tone in conflict. Maybe your actions are not what we want people mimicking. And it's kind of showing and revealing some things that are a result of me not practicing and working my recovery. I'm certainly not celebrating my recovery because I'm not working my recovery. I'm just kind of going through the motions. Now, we all go through seasons. We're human, but as a whole, people reproduce what they're seeing. So if the way you respond to people in conflict, how do you respond to correction? Those things can be mimicked in unhealthy ways, and they're often mimicked by the people that you're leading, that you're caring for. Again, you're seeing this theme of practicing not just what they're hearing out of your mouth, but what they're seeing out of your actions. Healthy modeling leads to healthy ministry. That's why, for example, we talk about that with the guidelines. If I say, hey, these are the guidelines, we need to follow these, and then I break every guideline every time I share, people are going to mimic that, and they're going to model that. And then you have an unhealthy ministry because they're modeling unhealth. Healthy modeling leads to healthy ministry. And so making sure that I'm mimicking that as being an active and wise participant in my open share small group. I want them mimicking the right thing, healthy ministry. And listen to Luke 6:40. The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. If I teach my kids, if they watch how I respond to conflict in unhealthy ways, they're going to mimic that. If they hear the words and how my language is and how I talk, they're going to mimic that. So I want my students, right? And I'm not better than them, but God has called me to shepherd them. If you're called into leadership, God has given you an awesome responsibility. What are they mimicking? Are they mimicking the right thing? What are they modeling? Are they modeling unhealth, or are they modeling health? So modeling faith in my trials builds endurance in others. So important. So how a leader handles pressures, how a leader handles pain, how a leader handles disappointment, shows others how to trust God in their own conflicts, in their own valleys, in their own everyday life. Listen to 2 Corinthians 4, verses 8 and verse 16. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. That chunk of scripture would be good to read, but just want to give that line. We're hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. And then verse 16, therefore, we do not lose heart. So we're showing people that in the midst of everyday life stuff, in the midst of struggles, we don't have to lose heart. And the reason we're doing that, and we can say that with faith and confidence, is because we're plugged into the source. I'm plugged in. I make it a regular practice. Every single morning at 5:30, I made a commitment with my wife. Now, we're in a different season. When we had kids, we couldn't do this. So if you have kids, you got to find out your own rhythm. But as empty nesters, we've made that our time together. We do our own quiet time, and then we process together. I want to model that for my wife, that this is important. It's important to have these faith. When we talk about faithfulness, sometimes we forget about spiritual faithfulness. I want to be faithful to my wife and having these heart conversations. So that's our commitment, but we're leaning into that so that in the hurt, and there's a lot of hurt going on in our family right now, just to be transparent, we're processing that. If we don't process that with Christ and each other, then we're going to lose heart. Is that 2 Corinthians says, therefore don't lose heart. We're going to be pressed and feel like on every side and crushed and feel like life's throwing us a lot, but we don't have to lose heart because we have Christ in our life. The last thing I'll share on this podcast is being an example to others guards against my own hypocrisy. When I can be an example and not to put this facade on, look how holy I am, but really as a necessity, it guards against my hypocrisy. Now I don't have to act like this to this group and act like this to this group and put this mask on to this group. I can be authentic. What you see is what you get, right? And sometimes that's not the greatest, but we're all human and we make mistakes and we repair that when we get it wrong and all that stuff. But it can guard, being a healthy example can guard against my own hypocrisy with the world. So modeling integrity, modeling carrying out this, being an active, wise participant in OpenShare specifically, helps me keep my integrity. It keeps that integrity. That integrity keeps me accountable to help align with what you see in public and what I see in private. And keeping those in balance, it keeps that hypocrisy at bay. Matthew 23:11-12 says, the greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. I love just that when we come to Him, we, in our humility, and it requires humility to say, hey, I still need this, guys. I still need to go to OpenShare. Maybe I'm further down the road than the guy or gal that's in the room with us, but I'm showing through my own humility, I still need help today, and I've not arrived. And the minute I think that I'm strong enough to live this life, this broken world under my own power, get ready. We talk about that in the relapse lesson, right? Where we get comfortable. I don't need life. Maybe I'll just skip OpenShare. I don't need that. I've been doing that for years. I'm in my 19th ministry year. It'd be easy to say, I'm comfortable. So we start to get complacent. The complacency follows that comfort, right? And then we begin to slowly, as we make compromises, like not going to OpenShare, not making it a high priority to be an active and wise participant in OpenShare, not setting that example, not modeling that for other people, getting into that I've arrived mentality. then guess what? Compromises start to happen and catastrophes right around the corner. And that takes me right back to that unhealthy place that I talked about a second ago. It's so important to be an active, wise, model wisdom, model being active in your recovery, model working your recovery. People are watching you, even when you don't see it. They're imitating something. What are they imitating? Are you making unhealthy disciples? Are you making disciplined disciples through this discipleship process, carrying out the practices to keep us on track, keeping us connected with the source so that we don't fall back in those unhealthy spaces that we've done before? I hope this gives you some encouragement. I know it's a lot to take in. Thank you for the person that submitted this topic idea. I love it. Why is it important? Because we've not arrived. We need help. We need each other. We need Christ. And in this disciplines, I used to be very disciplined in my toxicity, my dysfunction, my negative numbing agents. I know how to be disciplined. This is learning how to be disciplined in the right way toward health, to stay on the road to recovery, to keep living out God's calling as leaders. What a privilege to be a leader. Don't take it for granted. Stay disciplined in the process. And as you disciple other people and you do it with your modeling before you're speaking, you're going to make a big difference. But if you're new to the recovery process, jump in. We'd love for you to join us to begin this road to recovery. Join us every Friday night. We'd love to have you. Hey, thanks for being with me today. I pray that you'll join me next time. Until then, God bless you guys.